Thanks for joining us. I'm Lorelei Shmayo. We're Metaphysical Empowerment and Wellness Events. We have events throughout the Northwest and online. We're currently in Salem, Eugene, Portland, and Seattle. We interview our practitioners, our readers and healers and vendors, so you get a chance to know who we are before you meet us at an event. And so here today I have Karen Campbell. Karen, it's lovely to have you. You're welcome. So please, could you share a little bit about what it is that you do? What do you share at our events?
I read tarot cards. I have been passionate about cards since probably 1961. I was a rebellious teenager, and someone read for me, and it was an aha moment. So I have had a deck ever since. Now I have over 200 decks. I feel like tarot is one of the most affirming tools that I can use for connecting with my higher self. It's like flashcards for the spirit, for the angel on your shoulder, and it's a real comforting tool for me. And so I really love sharing that and introducing it to new people who haven't done it before, and also connecting with people who are facing challenges that are difficult and working through those. I also do coaching with us. We'll do a large spread and have the maybe final 4 or 5 cards in the spread turned into action plans that help people step along the way towards fulfilling or having a more fulfilling life. We can fill our coffers and we can fill our heart. When we have a fulfilling life, it's a pretty significant step up.
That's great. With 200 decks, how do you choose what you bring to a fair?
Just intuitively, partly intuitively. Some are easier to read and have more clarity in their pictures and stuff. I have some over here I kind of wanted to share a few. This one, for instance, would never go to a fair with me, but I love the genius that went into it, and there's such a huge, it's tarot of physics, and every card is an equation that is
Can you bring them up a little closer to the camera so we can see them? Just hold them up a little higher. Oh yeah, that's great. And then show us maybe a few cards.
Isn't that interesting? So I really love the creativity, the genius that goes into, and this is something someone did for themselves, you know.
That's amazing. That's great. I mean, I myself was a scientist, and I know a number of other people that were scientists that are now, right, physics, metaphysics kind of thing. So yeah, that's great.
It really fits. So
go ahead, show us some of the other decks you have out. I'm curious.
Okay, one of the things I really love about it, I love history, but more than history, I love heritage. And for me, tarot is a heritage, and there's a his and a her in those two things. One is a lineage, that the history, the line, that events that have happened that were significant in mankind's growth and development. But the heritage is the glue that's kept us all together. And it's the quilt making, and it's the cooking, and it's the tarot. So the oldest decks we have, and I'm not gonna mess with all the philosophies. Maybe it came from Egypt, maybe it came from India. I don't know any of that. What I do know is that the oldest decks that we have available that we can actually look at are from the 15th century. These are from 1450, and they would have been hand-painted for royalty. They were gold gilded, they had gold and silver inlay, and they were extraordinarily expensive, elaborate, gorgeous decks, which were used for playing canasta, but they were also used for drawing in the wisdom of all of the wisdom keepers of that time. If you look at a deck from the 15th century, you've got symbols from Christianity, of course, which was dominant. and 4 directions, which were more pagan, and astrology, the moon, the sun, the earth, and the stars, and mythology, and so there's just a broad spectrum. Numerology, I use a lot of numerology, and so when you lay out cards, you're drawing on wisdom from all of those arenas, and they are all compacted into that deck, which is really an exciting experience. Once the printing press was invented, which would have been 5th century or so, 1500s. Can you see these? They became very simple, simplistic colors, and more prevalent, more available to the pagans and the peasants. And then they became an issue because the peasants would gamble and or try to fortune tell for each other. So the kings became concerned because they weren't working in the fields or doing the things they were supposed to be doing. They were messing around. At about the same time, Martin Luther was starting new religions. The Bible was being printed. Reading was finally becoming something people did, which it hadn't been before. And so now the church became concerned about the cards also, because people could look at them and see the pictures of those events and relate them to their own lives in a personal way. So it became forbidden fruit. On the one hand, because of laziness perceived, and the other because of heretics, or the religious taking.
Fear of losing power by some people.
Yeah, but that forbidden fruit aspect has lasted. Still, some people will not even look at it. I mean, or allow them in their house, or there's some real fear things going on there, and it all came from that period and that challenge that the church faced when we all could access the wisdom of the Bible or the wisdom of the other religions and choose for ourselves. That was a very earth-changing, world-changing thing. So, coming down from that lineage, after that, this is an Atea deck, and they began to have secret societies because, of course, the minute it was forbidden, it became really tempting. And so there were a lot of secret societies and magical things that people were trying to do, and the cards took on a whole new aspect that they hadn't had before, that of magic. And let's see if I can get this out. If we remember our history and of our country, we know that those secret societies were also part of our history and our heritage. Following that, the cards took off in 2 different directions: the Thoth deck and the Aleister Crowley, or the Aleister Crowley deck and the Rider-Waite-Smith decks have different symbols. I mean, they'll have the justice and the strength cards are reversed. One using more numerology, the other using more astrology, and trying to apply other things to it, like the Kabbalah, and none of that was there before, but now it has become part of the decks. And so there's a division, and that's been an interesting thing to try to learn too and participate in. So
I've never heard about any of this before, actually, as people have talked about the cards. I appreciate you tying all this together.
Okay, thank you. And that was really it. I just wanted an overview of the amazing trip that it's been. I mean, since 1450, for goodness sake, that's a lot. Still carrying its weight. People are still getting into it, and Now there are thousands of decks and amazing decks. I got one from a couple from Australia just a couple of weeks ago, and they had used as models the people in the village that they lived in. And had stories about each one of these, like, here's the sun card, and she's a woman with all her children. This is the woman who bakes all the cakes for all the weddings. This is the woman who gets everybody together and gets things going, And then they had the justice card, and it was another woman, and she was writing, and they said, and this is the woman who gets stuff done. If you need anything done in our village, this is the woman you go to. So every one of them had a story, and it's so fun. It's wonderful to see what people do with them and where they go. Wow. You can tell I'm enthusiastic. I enjoy it.
And then have you sort of organically learned different modalities related to the cards or other modalities that you weave into your readings? Like how is the history of how that came about for you, and then also what happens when you sit to do a reading with someone?
Well, for starters, I'm a lifelong learner. There's just, there's really no walls on my curiosity. And so as you meet people, it seems like there's a synchronicity to meeting people who have something more to add. When I met Jean, who wrote the book, Big Black Book on Numerology, and I took several classes from her on numerology, on tarot, and we did a lot of ritual things together and stuff. And so it was really wonderful to connect with someone whose expertise was that and to incorporate that into it. Astrology, I still struggle with. So I've got the programs on my computer so that I can, somebody else can do the figures. Much as I love the physics deck, I'm not a mathematician and it's not my strong suit. So let's see, where did I start? For many years, because of my upbringing, my decks were hidden and nobody knew I even had them. It was really not okay. But once I came out of the closet with my decks, my first teacher was Christine Paintaller, and she's got a deck out, and she did the writing for tarot.com, and she's just a real genius. And I've really enjoyed learning from her, and still go back to her now and then for readings myself.
Maybe just if you could share a little bit, what was happening in your life or what was happening inside you that allowed you to come out publicly?
I went to work in the penitentiary and I was, how do I put this? It's very, it was very different for me. I was really on, I was a misfit. There was just no getting around it. I have been in criminal justice in one form or another for 25 years. I was a police officer before. It was never a good fit. I have no idea why I ended up, well, it was the gods were, giggling behind their sleeve over that one as they sent me into the penitentiary. I started reading for other people, and I got involved with being more overt about it as an escape. If I go to psychic fairs, I get to be with people I really like and enjoy and feel at home with. And I'm still doing that. And now that I'm retired, I do a lot more of it. And it really has more to do with feeling at home in the world than anything else. I would have probably stayed quite content with reading for myself and messing with the cards and drawing pictures or having journaling. I do a lot of journaling. And so I've written stories about every card, that's about what's happening in my life. But when I was forced to be all day, every day in an environment where I really didn't fit in very well and felt kind of left out of the crowd. So this was a wonderful way for me to
Yeah, I get that. So
find my community.
When people come to work with you at a fair, are they often drawn to one of your decks? They're drawn to you and they have a specific question? Like, how does that typically happen?
Sometimes they just walk by and are attracted to it. People who come to fairs typically are pretty in tune with their intuition to begin with. They come there because they are interested in that whole genre, and so they will intuitively know who to choose, which is exactly why you can go into a fair and they're wonderful environments, but you'll never find somebody who's a carnival barker trying to get you to come over to their booth. It's just never the way it is, because we all know that people are drawn to what they need, and that what needs to come to you will come to you, or whoever. So a lot of times they're just drawn to me because that's the intuition. Sometimes they stop and they look at the cards, especially if they have never had a reading before. Then they have the curiosity about the decks and they want to see them. And I always have, a dozen decks with me. And I always let people touch and look through and check them out. And so the conversation starts. The other thing I do and have done always is available so that people don't have to pay a lot. If they've never done it before, they want a 3-card reading, we can do that, and get an introduction, because a lot of times you don't know who you want until you've heard their voice, until you've heard what they have to say when the card comes up. So that's kind of the open door.
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate your flexibility in working with people. So if people would like to learn more about you online, where do they go?
I have a website. It's going to get redone soon to be more user-friendly. Right now, it's more informational than anything else. It's brokenwingcounseling.com. My business.
brokenwingscounseling.com.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was exciting talking with you. I loved hearing the history.
Thank you.
Sweet. So for those of you listening and watching, you can come find us online at MetaphysicalEmpowermentEvents.com. We look forward to seeing you at our events. Thanks so much, Karen.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.